Have you ever watched a movie where the main character barely says anything, yet somehow you know exactly how they're feeling? That's Edward Scissorhands. On the surface, it looks like a weird fantasy about a guy with scissors instead of hands. But once you really pay attention, you realize it's one of the saddest stories ever put on film. It's about isolation, rejection, love, and what happens when someone doesn't fit into society and is forced to try anyway. And the older I get, the more I think this movie really isn't about Edward at all. It's about us. Let's break it down. The first thing that stands out is Edward himself. Normally, movies introduce their main character as someone who grows throughout the story. Edward is different. He already has the qualities that most people spend their entire lives trying to develop. He's kind, honest, patient, and genuinely cares about other people. His biggest flaw isn't his personality, it's how everyone else sees him. The movie tells us that Edward was created by an inventor who treated him like a son. He taught him manners, gave him an education, and wanted him to experience life like everyone else. But before he could finish him and give him real hands, the inventor dies. That's one of the most important moments in the whole film because Edward is literally unfinished. The scissors aren't just there because they look cool. They're a reminder that Edward never got to become the person he's supposed to be. Think about that for a second. He's forced to live with something that he never asked for, and everyone judges him because of it. That's something a lot of people can relate to. Maybe not scissors for hands, obviously, but everyone has something about themselves they wish other people would look past. Tim Burton takes that idea and builds the whole movie around it. Then we get introduced to the neighborhood. At first glance, it looks perfect. Every house is colorful, every lawn is perfectly trimmed, everyone smiles. Everything looks exactly how a perfect suburban neighborhood should look, but that's all it is. It looks perfect. The people living there spend more time gossiping about each other than actually caring about one another. They're obsessed with appearance, they're obsessed with fitting in, and Edward completely disrupts that. When Peg brings Edward home, the neighborhood doesn't see a lonely person. They see entertainment. He's the exciting new thing. Everyone suddenly wants to meet him, not because they care about him, because they're curious. That curiosity eventually turns into admiration. Edward starts cutting everybody's hedges into these incredible sculptures. He gives people incredible haircuts. Even the dogs are groomed better than people. Everyone loves him, but here's the important part. They don't love Edward. They love what Edward can do for them. That's a huge difference. The second Edward stops being useful, the entire neighborhood flips on him. It's honestly scary how fast it happens. Nothing about Edward changes. He's the exact same person that he was when he arrived. The only thing that changes is how people see him. That's one of the smartest parts of the movie because Burton isn't criticizing Edward. He's criticizing everyone else. The real monster isn't living in the creepy mansion. They're living inside colorful houses. And then there's Kim. And at first she's scared of Edward, which makes sense. If you walked into your house and saw someone with scissor hands, you'd probably have the same reaction. But unlike everyone else, Kim actually gets to know him. She realizes that he's gentle, he's awkward, he's shy. He's probably the most innocent person she's ever met. The relationship works because she stops paying attention to Edward's appearance and starts paying attention to who he really is. That's something that almost nobody else in the movie ever does. One of my favorite things about Edward is he never becomes bitter. Think about everything that happens to him. People use him, laugh at him, turn against him, accuse him of things, treat him like he's dangerous, and he never loses that kindness. He never becomes cruel just because people are cruel to him. Honestly, that's probably the hardest thing anyone could do. And then we have Jim. Jim is the complete opposite of Edward. Edward looks dangerous but has a good heart. Jim looks normal but treats everyone around him terribly. He's selfish, manipulative, jealous. Whenever something goes wrong, he makes sure someone else takes the blame for it. It's another example of the movie asking us a simple question. Who should actually be feared? The guy who looks different, or the guy willing to hurt people to get what he wants? By the end of the movie, Edward realizes something heartbreaking. No matter how hard he tries, no matter how much good he does, there isn't a place for him in this world. So he turns to the mansion. Not because he wants to be alone, because he believes everyone else would be better off without him. Kim understands this. That's why she tells everyone else that he died. It sounds cruel at first, but it's actually one of the best things she could have done. If people believe Edward is gone, they'll finally leave him alone. He doesn't have to spend the rest of his life being hunted, judged, and treated like an outsider. He can simply exist. The final scene always gets me. Kim is an old woman telling the story years later. She admits she never went back to see Edward. Not because she stopped loving him, but because she wanted Edward to remember her the way she was. Young, happy, in love. Meanwhile, Edward is still in the mansion, still carving sculptures, still creating beauty. And every time the ice falls from his sculptures, it becomes snow for the town below. Think about how beautiful that is. The town rejected him, feared him, misunderstood him, yet Edward still gives them something beautiful every single year. He expects nothing in return. That's who Edward is. He's kind because that's who he is, not because he hopes people will reward him for it. And I think that's why the movie has stayed relevant for so long. It isn't about fantasy, it isn't about romance, it isn't even about scissors. It's about being different in a world that desperately wants everybody to be the same. It's about realizing that appearances tell you nothing about a person's character. And it's about choosing kindness even when the world gives you every reason not to. That's why Edward Scissorhands is still one of Tim Burton's greatest films. Not because it's visually beautiful, not because Johnny Depp gave one of the greatest performances, but because underneath all the fantasy, it's a story that's painfully human. And I don't think it'll ever stop being relevant. If you enjoyed this breakdown, let me know what movie you would like me to cover next. If you loved Edward Scissorhands, I'd love to know what this movie means to you. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.